Hello everyone. In this video lesson I am going to present the Chapter 3, Elizabethan Poetry and Prose from an outline of English literature in native sound. Chapter 3 Elizabethan Poetry and Prose. Elizabethan period 1558 to 1603 Poetry Prose 1. Edmund Spenser The Shepherd's Calendar He Fairy Queen Epithalamy and Prothalamy and Amoretti 2. John Donne The Flea The Ecstasy 3. Sir Philip Sidney Astrophel and Stella 4. Christopher Marlowe The Passionate Shepherd to His Love 5. Ben Jonson to Celia 6. Thomas Wyatt and Earl of Surrey Songs and Sonnets 7. W. Shakespeare 130 Sonnets 8. Michael Drayton Since There's No Help Sonnet 1. Francis Bacon Essays A History of Henry VII The Advancement of Learning The New Atlantis 2. Ben Jonson Timber Discoveries 3. Richard Hakluyt The Principal Navigations Voyages and Discoveries of the English Nation 4. Samuel Purchas His Pilgrims 5. John Lilly Euphues 6. Thomas Nash The Life of Yakka Wilton 7. William Tyndale The Authorized Version of the Bible 8. Sir Thomas North Lives of the Noble Grecians and Romans Chapter 9. Robert Greene Pandosto. Queen Elizabeth ruled from 1558 to 0603, which is the golden age of literature. Elizabethan age was a great age of English literature. During this time the writing of poetry was the part of education among the educated people. That is why many books of poetry by different writers appeared during this age. Sir Thomas Wyatt and the Earl of Surrey. Before the beginning of Elizabethan age, the two poets Wyatt and Surrey wrote works of value. They are often considered together, but there are many differences in their work. Both of these writers wrote many sonnets and lyrics. Wyatt first brought the sonnet to the England. Sonnet is 14 lines rhyming poem. He mainly followed the form of Italian poet Petrarch. Surrey's work is also important because he wrote the first blank verse in English, which is pretty good. He keeps it alive by changing the positions of the main beats in lines. They published songs and sonnets in 1557, which made them well known. Michael Drayton is one of the best sonnet writers at this time, and contributes to enhance the English literature very well. His sonnet entitled With Since There's No Help touches the heart of the contemporary society. W. Shakespeare The greatest dramatist Shakespeare was also a great poet of this age who wrote around 130 sonnets, and they are very famous in English literature. He developed a new form of sonnet called the English sonnet or the Shakespearean sonnet, which rhyme A B A B C D C D E F E F G G. It is different from Petrarchan sonnet. Many of his sonnets refer to a girl, a rival poet and a dark-eyed beauty. All his sonnets were written during the 1593 to 1600 AD. Edmund Spenser was a famous poet who introduced the Elizabethan age proper. The Shepherd's Calendar 1579 is his pastoral poem written in 12 books, one for each month of the year. He made a lot of experiments in meter and form in order to examine his own abilities. It is the best pastorals written in English up to that time. It includes various subjects, such as praise of Queen Elizabeth, discussion about religion, the sad death of a girl. The poem was accepted as a great work by the nation. His greatest work is The Fairies' Queen 1557. It is romantic allegorical epic full of adventure and marvel. The greatness of this poem lies in the magic feeling in the air, the wonderful music of the verse and the beauty of the sound. It has amazing episodes, heroic characters and long descriptions. There are 12 knights representing different virtues. Spenser invented a special meter for it, which is known as Spenserian stanza, contains 9 lines and rhyming pattern is A B A B B C B C C. He also wrote many other sonnets and poems expressing his personal thoughts and feelings. Epithalamion, 1595, is an almost perfect marriage song. He wrote Prothalamion, 1596, in honor of the double marriage of the daughters of the Earl of Worcester. He wrote other sonnets which published in 1595 under the title Amoretti. Lyrics of the Elizabethan age. The Elizabethan age also produced a surprising flow of lyric poetry expresses the poet's own thoughts and feelings. That is why the lyric poet is often known as a rather dreamy and practical person with his thoughts turned inwards. Sir Philip Sidney and Sir Walter Raleigh, the men of many activities, also wrote lyrics. Sir Philip Sidney was a true Elizabethan gentleman with lots of talent, and wrote Astrophel and Stella, which was printed in 1591. Some of the best lyrics of the time were in the dramatic works. Characters on the stage were given songs to sing to please the audience and to give some relief when necessary. As an example, there is a very sweet lyric in Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. The famous dramatist Marlowe has also a fine lyric writer, and he published The Passionate Shepherd to his love. Metaphysical poets. Metaphysical poets are a group of 17th-century poets who are influenced by John Donne. These poets use a special kind of language for their poetry. They express ideas in a tricky and witty way by using unusual images and paradoxes in both love and religious poetry. Their poetry is less beautiful and less musical, but it can attract the attention of the reader because they mix strong feelings with reason in a quite strange way. John Donne is known as the greatest metaphysical poet, but it is difficult to find a complete poem by him which is faultless. He wrote many good things, but no perfect poem. His songs and sonnets are finest, and collective work is even praiseworthy. Prose. Various authors of Elizabethan age translated various books into English. Sir Thomas North translated Plutarch's Lives of the Noble Grecians and Romans, 1579. It is on the whole written in fine and noble English, and it had wide influence on Elizabethan prose. He was one of the best translators with a good command of English. He also had the ability to weave words into powerful sentences. He did not translate directly from Greek but from French translation. Shakespeare has also used some expressions of North's work in some of his famous dramas. Richard Hakluyt collected and published the principal navigations, voyages and discoveries of the English nation, 1589. At this time there was a great deal of travel and adventure on the sea. This book includes the accounts of the voyages of different people. Hakluyt left a lot of unpublished papers, and some of these came into the possession of Samuel Purchas. He published them under the title Purchas His Pilgrims in 1625, containing a history of the world in sea voyages and land travel. This book deals with voyages to many countries. Some early novels. Elizabethan novels are of little value on the whole, and few people read them now. They did not lead on to the great novels of later years. They were a false start, and died out. A kind of novel or some early forms of novel also appeared during the Elizabethan age. John Lyly wrote a kind of novel named UFOs. It started as a fashion, which spread in books and conversation. It has a thin love story. The style is filled with tricks and alliteration, the sentences are rather long and complicated and used large numbers of similes. This kind of language style was common among ladies of that time. Queen Elizabeth herself used it. Every girl of good family in those days learnt to speak not only French but also UFOism. Even Shakespeare was influenced by this artificial style. Another novelist was Robert Greene, whose story Pandosto gave Shakespeare the plot of his play The Winter's Tale. Thomas Nash, who wrote a picaresque novel named The Life of Yakko Wilton. This sort of novel is about the adventure of bad, wicked but lovable character. The novels of this period could not create a basis for later development. The fashion of these novels died out soon. Francis Bacon. The prose of Francis Bacon is important. His essays especially are popular still. Some of the best-known sayings in English come from Bacon's books, and especially from the essays. He is one of the most famous prose writers of this time, who is also known as the father of the English prose. He wrote books both in English and Latin. His aphoristic prose style is very popular. His essays are full of remarkable thoughts. He could express great ideas in short and effective sentences. His famous books are the Essays 1597, The Advancement of Learning 1605, The History of Henry VII 1622, and The New Atlantis 1626. Bacon wrote several other books in English and Latin. Translations of Bible. During this period, several translations of the Bible were made. William Tyndale was a successful translator who translated the New Testament from the Greek and the Old Testament from the Hebrew. He was later burnt to death for his beliefs. The Authorized Version (AV) of the Bible appeared in 1611. 47 translators worked in groups on different parts of the Bible in order to translate it. This work was dependent chiefly on Wycliffe and Tyndale. The language is beautiful, strong and pure. The work was finished in 1611, and the result, depending chiefly on Wycliffe and Tyndale, was called the Authorized Version, though in fact no one authorized it. Ben Jonson. The famous dramatist Ben Jonson, who is also known as the father of the English literary criticism, wrote a book named Timber Discoveries 1640. This book is a collection of notes and ideas on various subjects. Jonson believes that a critic should judge a work as a whole, and he must have some poetic abilities. He did not like Donne and Spenser but always preferred Shakespeare. His critical ideas are not limited to this book but appear elsewhere. He is one of the greatest dramatists as well. Thank you for joining with me in this video lesson, and subscribe my channel to get my upcoming video lesson continuously. Keep suggesting us. See you soon.